Alright everybody, welcome back! So the dev server for the next update, Firebirds, has been up for several days now, and there's been a lot of talk about the different vehicles, all different videos going out of course. But one thing I noticed that was surprisingly absent was the talk about these massive RWR changes that are coming. I can't think of a single video I've seen covering this, and there's been very little chatter about it on Discord. And that is the fact that many digital RWRs are getting absolutely massively neutered this update. Now, before I get into it, I do just want to let y'all know I am not going to be covering every single RWR and exactly what changes they are getting and exactly which airplanes these affect. I'm just going to be talking about the changes as a whole, giving a few examples and talking about exactly why this is a horrible change in my opinion. So to start from the beginning, just in case you don't know what I'm talking about, I am talking about your radar warning receiver, or RWR. The digital RWR specifically have been, well, technically they've been in the game for a while now, but realistically, the current implementation has been in for about a year now. And they give threat identification based on what actually pings them. So currently, with basically every top tier jet, if you get locked by an F-15, an F-16, a MiG-29, whatever, it is going to tell you what is locking you. Now, there, of course, are a couple exceptions, like all the Soviet jets show up as MiG-29, basically. Some planes use the same radar as another, say, for example, the F-4E JK is going to show up as F-16, but for the most part, if you get locked by something, you are going to know what is coming at you. What Gaijin is doing is they are changing many of these digital RWRs to no longer show a specific target. I will start off with a little bit of good news, and that is for top tier jets, the tippy top 13.7 ones at least, the vast majority of them aren't going to be too badly affected, at least in air. Stuff like the F-16, the J-10, other top tiers like that will still, for the most part, get identification of enemies. Gaijin is merging all of these earlier planes into the fighter category, which of course the tippy top tiers won't see, but some of the vehicles that are at 12.7 or 13.0 will still see. So, say for example, a Mirage F1 could be coming at you, a Viggen could be coming at you, a J8 could be coming at you, and you're going to have no idea which one it is because it's just going to say fighter. That is still an inconvenience, but it's not a massive deal because most of the planes that you're seeing at or above your BR are still going to show up in your RWR. The problem comes when you get to stuff like, say, for example, the F-14B or the Gripen. The F-14B is at 13.0 and can constantly see top tier jets, and the Gripen is a top tier jet at 13.7, activated homing missiles and everything else. So what do you think is going to happen whenever I have, say, for example, a MiG-29 in front of me? Yeah, it just says PD. What about an F-15? Also PD. The Mirage 2000. I think you're starting to get the idea. Every pulse Doppler radar just shows up as PD. You have no idea what plane is looking at you. It could be anything with a pulse Doppler radar. It is just going to see PD. This is a massive, massive issue for the Gripen and for anything else that has these RWRs that are getting this nerf. These digital RWRs are huge for your situational awareness at, every BR really that has RWR, but especially at top tier in this new BVR meta that we're in, right? The spotting system, to be quite frank, sucks. Most of the time at top tier and a lot of the time at these lower tiers, whatever is shooting at you or you are shooting at is not going to be spotted. And that's not even talking about simulator or, tank RB where there is no spotting system. But even just a normal ARB, this was how you knew what you needed to do to react to the missile coming at you. Whether at top tier that be the fact that, hey, this is an R77, I can easily bleed this to speed, or at lower tiers. The difference between an R27ER and an AIM-7F coming at you is massive. You can easily chaff an AIM-7F if you just go into the notch real quick and pop chaff. The R27ER is much more difficult, and how I'm going to react to that varies depending on what is coming at me. And now, unless they are spotted, I will have no idea in something like the F-14B, for example, the F-4E, even the Gripen at top tier. Now, my understanding is that this is trying to make the RWRs more realistic. But first of all, as far as I'm aware, we don't really have any of these threat tables from these period correct RWRs. I was given one, but it's in the mid-2000s. It does somewhat line up with the current top tier RWRs, so I can believe it. But when it comes to the 80s or 90s digital RWRs, or even just the Gripens, right, as far as I'm aware, there's not really any threat tables that we can get access to bug report these, so we're just at the mercy of Gaijin when it comes to what they decide to do. And having this massive disparity in RWR is just yet another thing that could make or break a vehicle. If you ask me if they are going to do this, right, because I don't think they're going to turn this around, it should be a sim exclusive thing. The historical accuracy of a lot of these changes is already disputed, because like I said, we don't really have any sources on it, but if they're going to go that route, then that's fine. They should at least make it so that in RB, where they already take liberties with plenty of other stuff when it comes to realism, and where we are, of course, in a mixed matchmaker, we can keep these vehicles relevant. And by the way, I've only talked about air so far. They also changed how ground radar threats display as well. Many of these will now display basically every AA as just SPAA, including stuff like the Tunguska, for example, which are obviously not just an SPAA. And as you can see right here, even one of the most modern RWRs that we have in the game on the brand new shiny F-15E can no longer identify the search radar, not the PESA, the search radar of the Pantsir. It just gives me a question mark. So that means that a Pantsir could be looking at me, or it could be any of the other AAs that either aren't in a group or just got made so that RWRs can't pick them up anymore. And of course, you still get no warning for the track radar either. I'm being locked right now, and the only indication I'm getting of there being anything looking at me is just those two pings that have a question mark. And in case you're wondering, no, the Pantsir still does not give a launch warning either. My ask, if you see as much of a problem with this as I do, is that you go on the forums and ask Gaijin to preferably can this, but knowing them they probably won't, especially all the work they've put into it. But go ahead and ask if they can go ahead and make it a sim exclusive instead. Realistic, while it is somewhat realistic, it does take a lot of liberties with the vehicles and other stuff like that, so I don't think making RWRs more competitive all around will negatively affect the game in any regard, really, and it'll actually make the gameplay much better, especially for vehicles like, for example, the Gripen. After all, first and foremost, War Thunder is a game, and gameplay should always be prioritized, if you ask me. I know that was a bit of a depressing rant, so I wanted to show my sim enjoyers and Soviet plane enthusiasts that the SPO-15 is now finally working in the cockpit. This means that you get signal strength, you can actually tell if a plane looking at you is above or below you, which is an advantage compared to NATO RWRs. And although you may have worse angles compared to NATO RWRs, if you can learn to read the threat identification, you might actually have a little bit better identification of planes than the Nerf NATO RWRs now. At least the really badly nerfed ones. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please go ahead and hit that like button. It means a lot to me, and maybe even subscribe if you aren't already. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch y'all next time. So, peace, y'all.